Welcome to the Hair, Babes and Business podcast. My name is Jessica Marie and I am an online educator and hair, beauty and business coach. I worked behind the chair for 14 years and successfully fully booked out 2 of my own hair salons before taking on this role. I have learned the many intricacies of hairdressing and running a spa or salon business. Through Hair, Babes and Business, I, alongside other industry experts, am sharing valuable knowledge to help you grow your business and fast track your success. I am so grateful that you have found our community and have decided to become a part of it. I can't wait to work with you and to move progressively towards a new era in the hair and beauty world. Thank you for being here today. Now let's begin. Hello guys and welcome back to this week's episode of the Hair, Babes and Business podcast. My name is Jess and I am your host, and today I'm bringing you a very special guest episode. Today I'm interviewing the beautiful Ava from the Backup Hairdresser. She is just such a beautiful soul and such a beautiful light. I cannot wait for you guys to listen to this episode. When Ava first reached out to me and told me about her business concept and what she's doing, I was so excited to share this. You know, when you were a kid at school and your teacher was sick and they brought in a relief teacher who would cover all the lessons, make sure that everything was running smoothly and get you back on track so your teacher could come back and do her thing when she was ready. Well, that's essentially what Ava's doing, but for hairdressers. It means that you can go and have that holiday, avoid that burnout. If you're sick, you can take some time off. If you have an emergency come up, you can totally do that. I wish that I'd had a service like this available to me when I broke my ankle and my foot last year, because being able to have someone to come in and take over my salon and just be able to rest easy knowing that things were being taken care of while I was healing would have been such a game changer. So I'm super excited to share this conversation with you. As always, the conversation goes much deeper than just business and we talk about everything to do with the hair and beauty industry. I think today's episode is a great one and I cannot wait to dive into it. I just really want to take this opportunity and time to thank Ava so much for coming on and sharing her wisdom and her knowledge and talk about her business with us. I just think Ava's such a beautiful soul, and as always, I will link all of Ava's information in the show notes so that you can go and find her and follow her and see what she's up to. And of course, any girlies who are in her local area would highly recommend signing up for this business idea, because it's such a great thing to be a part of. Such a great opportunity that you really should be trying to take, because it's better to have it and not need it than not sign up and then be like, oh, that would have come in so handy. So definitely go check her out and see what she's doing. Now, I did just want to give a little warning that if there are any little ears listening today, there is a little bit of language at the end of today's episode. So if you want to keep this for a time when little ears aren't listening, it might be better to do that. But let's dive into today's episode. All right, guys, so welcome back to the Hair, Babes and Business podcast. Today, I'm very excited to have a very special guest with us today. Ava, do you want to tell me who you are and what you do and how you got into the industry?
Yes, well, thank you so much for having me. And firstly, before I get into my story, I would love to say thank you to you for creating this beautiful platform, because I think it is incredible that us hairdressers have got to a point within the industry where we are collaborating. And I think, you know, the power in doing these types of things, having conversations around all holistically, you know, all parts of the human experience as a hairdresser, the family life, the business life, you know, as a stylist in a salon. I think it's incredible that we're having these conversations. So thank you for creating this magic and having me on today.
Oh, thank you so much. That means so much to me. Thank you.
It's really cool. It's really cool. I really admire you and I share you with all of my people. And yeah, I think the more we can talk about it and share each other, and, you know, we've all got our own unique experience, and it's beautiful to hear. So thank you. Yeah, so my story. So I'm Sydney trained. So grew up on the northern beaches of Sydney and worked for an amazing woman for the first 6 years of my career, my apprenticeship, and was nominated for Hairdresser of the Year in Sydney. So that was a huge experience there. She was incredible as an educator and as an employer. And then we moved to New Zealand and I continued hairdressing over there. Met a beautiful Kiwi man in Sydney and then went over and spent some time over in his country. And that was a whole new experience, hairdressing in Sydney versus hairdressing in New Zealand. Hair is completely different. People are completely different. It was quite a culture shock, but a really good one. And yeah, when I was about 25, so our boys were 2 and 4, I decided to start my own business. So we bought a property and built a home-based business on the side of our house. And I say that it was an accidental success because I decided to start and I didn't take the clients or anything from the salon that I was working at. I also worked for an extraordinary woman in New Zealand, and I was very loyal to her and wanted to make sure that, you know, I left on really beautiful terms and that we could continue a beautiful friendship. So it was starting from scratch, and yeah, it was huge. It was super successful, but having a young family and navigating, I kind of reflect back and I'm like, oh my goodness, I think I just tripped my way through it. Like there was nothing like this magic. And that's why I think this is so valuable, because today to have these resources, you know, for men and women that are wanting to, you know, branch out on their own, to have all of this education available, extraordinary. Because yeah, I was free falling, but it was amazing and I learned lots through, you know, the journey. And then we decided to move back to Australia 9 years ago, so we're on the Sunshine Coast now. And yeah, we were really struggling to fall pregnant with our number 3. So rather than diving into a salon space, a commercial space, which was kind of the next stage that I was at, Mum was like, no, too much stress. I want you to be able to have, you know, complete your family, have your baby. And so they built a house and actually built a wing on the front of their property, which was incredible. So I set up there, which was only a few minutes around the corner from where we were living. So built the salon again. It was also a huge success. But of course, you know, when you're busy and booked, you know, 6 months in advance, like it was really, there was no breathing space. And we had our beautiful little girl, Georgia, and yeah, it was just like hit the ground running again. So probably around COVID times when hairdressers had to step off the floor, it was a beautiful opportunity for us as a family to, I guess, reassess where we were at, sort of jump off the treadmill and go, okay, like what's happening here? Are we going to continue doing this, or are we going to sort of look for different paths, you know, different opportunities? And yeah, I decided to, well, COVID, once we were able to get back going, I just jumped back on the horse, kept going, and then was like, hang on a sec, no, this is not quite for me. I'm feeling like I'm, you know, back in that monotony of same stuff, just another day. So yeah, jumped off the treadmill. That was like a huge risk for us as a family because we've got mortgages and all of the stuff that comes with, you know, raising 3 children. So yeah, had some time off. And I guess it was at that time when I was like, okay, what did I need as a business owner, as backup support, that I didn't have? And so I really used that time wisely, I guess, to really evaluate the industry, how much it had grown from when I first started hairdressing as a 14-year-old. You know, 5 years ago, I was like 32, and I was like, you know, it's changed and evolved, and I think for the better. But there's still parts of it that are really old school, and parts that I'm like, come on, hairdressers, come on, like we need to move a bit faster. So I feel like what I'm doing now, which I'll get into, is shaking the industry a little bit because it's very different. So yeah, so what I identified was that us business owners, we don't have the backup support that we need. And when we want to take a holiday, or when we're, you know, having medical issues and we need that support to step off the floor and, you know, have a medical procedure and know that we can heal and recover with time. Children add like a whole new complexity where it's so unpredictable. You just don't know what's going to present the next day or in a week's time. So yeah, so I actually host a Gather Together event on the Sunshine Coast, which is a women in business event. And a beautiful woman, Shana, came, and she's actually in the dental industry, but created like an agency. So she has a pool of dental assistants, and she manages them. And when a dentist needs support, they ring Shana and she teams them up with a dental assistant to go into the firm. And so I was listening to her one day and I was like, it was just one of those moments. I had been doing all of my own research, trying to unpack the industry, the mindset of hairdressers, the way we're conditioned, and I was just, faced with this beautiful conversation with this woman. And I was just like, that's it. Backup hairdresser for our industry, just like she's got backup dental assistants for her industry. So yeah, I kind of just threw myself into it again. There was no model for me to go off. It was a bit of okay, I have to create a business model. And yeah, and so that's where I am today.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm really excited to dive into exactly what the backup hairdresser is and what you're doing and how that really is changing the industry. But before we get into that, I really do appreciate you sharing your story of kind of how you've gotten to this point, because you said a few things that I think will really resonate with people. Firstly, kind of that whole thing of just going into owning a business and really just not like you said, you kind of, it was, do you say a happy accident or something
Yeah,
like that?
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
And I think that's so true. Like, none of us really know what we're doing. We really are
Mm,
just kind of fumbling our way through until something kind of works. And I just love that you brought that up, because I think it's so important for anyone who is starting in business or in business to just hear that, like, that is the reality of what's happening here. Like, it really is just this trial and error trying to figure it out. And so I really appreciate you sharing that. And also, I really appreciate you sharing sort of the struggles that kind of we've all sort of faced over the last few years of not only just, trying to figure out a business, but also adding children into the mix, adding COVID into the mix. Like, I think these are all very relatable issues. So I just really wanted to thank you for sharing that and sharing how you kind of got to this point. But now, what I really want to talk about is the backup hairdresser. This is something, when you reached out to me, I was like, I'm so excited about this because I
yes.
genuinely have never heard of this before. And I don't know if it's just not a thing that exists or if it's just not something that I've just really ever heard about it. But this makes me so excited. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but last year I actually broke my ankle and my foot at the same time. And that was actually when I chose to step away from the salon and start running Hair Babes and Business full time.
Oh
But
my
for me to have had this service when that happened would have been so, so helpful. And I think so many hairdressers would be listening to this being like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, I want to hear more. So do you kind
yeah.
of want to share how this has all sort of come about and what this looks like for you now?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. I didn't realize that that happened to you. And this is the sort of stuff, the unforeseen circumstances that you don't plan for in business. We can do all of the admin structure. I've always been amazing at building, the business model and then, here's the goal in a year, in 3 years, and then chunking it down and reverse engineering all the steps to get there. And, I feel like from a structured point of view as a personality, I've always been really good at doing that. But then when stuff happens, like tripping over and breaking your foot that you can't plan for, what does that look like in business as a business owner? How do you then navigate that? And I guess, for me, when I first started out as the backup hairdresser, I was connected with this beautiful woman, Janine, and she had just had a hysterectomy. And so I very nervously got on Facebook and jumped on one of the Sunshine Coast hairdresser pages. And like I was trembling to put myself out there because it was such a new concept in our industry. I wasn't sure how it was going to be received. And yeah, I was like, hi, I'm Ava. I'm the backup hairdresser. I offer temporary support for business owners that, need to take medical leave or want to take a holiday. Or she messaged me straight away and she was like, Ava, I've just had a hysterectomy. I'm off the floor now for 6 weeks. I've been so nervous about what my business is going to look like when I come back. Would you be open to catching up? And it was almost like the next day I went in and I didn't have anything. I mean, I had a few little bits and pieces, a bit of a service agreement, terms and conditions kind of penciled out, but I was still very early stages. I was thinking it'll be like months before I get my first salon. I thought, but I've got to put myself out there. And anyway, so I went and met with her, and straight away, within a couple of days, I was in her salon, and which was incredible. And it was fabulous because she was there as a salon owner. Although she had had this operation, she was in huge discomfort. She was able to be in the space and introduce me to her clients. And essentially, I was the pair of hands for her. So she could still, have that connection with her clients, reassure them that, I'm a qualified hairdresser, I'm experienced, I really value learning and education and upskilling. So I guess that reassured her clients. But then she was also able to do sort of the back end of things, the payment, the rebooking. So essentially, I was her pair of hands and pair of legs so that the doors could stay open, the clients could keep coming in, no cancellations, no rescheduling. Yeah. And then I guess, yeah, word of mouth has been really powerful. With the Backup Hairdresser, trust is everything, building the relationships. I know as a businesswoman, having somebody else come into my salon and essentially take over the business, it's huge responsibility. So building trust with the business owners is, an area that, I have to really focus on and grow and evolve and work out, as I go and as I meet new people, what is it that they want? What is the reassurance that they need? But I feel like, it's almost May will be a year of the Backup Hairdresser. So yeah, I've got probably 12 salons registered and 4 that use me consistently. So I've got some that just book me, in January next year for a holiday. They're going away for 3 weeks, so they book me in advance. And then I've got a couple that use me probably on the weekly that will ring and say, one salon owner, she's studying to be a psychologist. So she, will ring me and say, I need a study day next week. Are you available? Can you come in? So essentially, I've got a really well-run service agreement now, which outlines what I provide as a hairdresser and what the salon provides as the customer. So yeah, the trust is there. They all give me a key or a pin code to their salons, and I go in and I have an opening checklist, a closing checklist. I have part of the registering of a salon is the service agreement is signed and agreeable on both parties. And then the next part is that I have an onboarding consultation. So that's a 1-hour appointment where I go into the salon. We run through all of the services, the products, the systems, the procedures. I write lots of notes. I come home and I integrate the data into my computer. So every salon has got its own folder with, different photos of the salon, all of the systems that they use, the products. It has been so much learning for me because there are so many hair products out on the market. Like you just get stuck in the range that you use. And now I'm like, oh my goodness, there's so much. So it's been great for my brain stimulation to keep me going. But yeah, to go back to, I am on call essentially once you're registered and we've been through the onboarding process, registration is complete, and essentially I'm on hand and ready to go. So if you were to ring and say, I've had a terrible accident, I'm off the floor, I've got 6 weeks worth of bookings, ahead, and I don't want to cancel them, my advice to the salon owner is always to say to the clients, Ava is here as a backup hairdresser to offer maintenance. She's not here for massive transformations. She's not going to change your color. She's not going to change your haircut. She's here just to get you from A to B. So, part of that a service agreement is that the salons keep record of their clients' colors, any notes, so that if they're not there, it's very easy for me just to follow their process, what colors they use. And of course, I can use my experience. If they come in and say, I've been having this done, but actually I'd like a few foils today, or, I've been having foils, but now, I can then lean on my own expertise and adapt. But for the most part, I'd say 95% of it is just maintenance. And then as soon as they do that, as soon as I say that I'm here just to maintain you, it's like the shoulders drop. They're like, oh, okay, this is exciting. There's somebody new. So I think for the stereotypical, and I'm going to say in bunny ears, like old school hairdresser, where it's like, oh, you're going to come in and deal with my client? Like, what do you mean? Like, that's scary. That's my person. They want me. They don't want somebody new. It's kind of shaking things up and saying, yes, you are an extraordinary hairdresser, but you're also a human that has a family that needs to go and have a holiday, and a holiday where they can actually switch off, not be thinking about, oh, I've got to check the appointment today. I've got to make sure my staff are okay. Like, I want that salon owner to actually go away, rest, recharge, and then come back in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later to a beautiful sparkling salon and go, oh my goodness, I can have a holiday and it's okay. So yeah, does that answer yes the question? What is the backup hairdresser?
Absolutely. This whole concept and everything you're doing makes me so excited. And my brain is just like exploding with like so many things I want to ask you.
Yes, go away, fire.
Firstly, I just wanted to say I really like, I guess I'm kind of thinking of this from like all different perspectives because I'm thinking about it as like business owners who are listening and hearing this from like a business perspective. I'm thinking about this as other hairdressers who might want your services and like are wanting to ask from their perspective. And I'm also thinking about it as people who are like listening to this and are like, I want to do this. I want to like find out how to make this my business idea. So I kind of have a bunch of questions from like three different perspectives.
Yeah, I love it.
First of all, I want to sort of talk about the person who is kind of already in business. And this is just something you said something that I thought was just such a good takeaway. And I really just wanted to reiterate that again, is the fact that you weren't almost really ready to do it, but this opportunity arose for you and it was just like jump in both feet first. And that is really scary, but like I commend you for doing that because I think that's how business happens and that's how business grows. It's like seeing an opportunity and being like terrified, but also knowing like if you want this thing to work, you just have to take the opportunity and go for it. So I just really want to commend you on that and say that, I think that's a beautiful thing to be able to do. And it's a brave thing to be able to do, but obviously it has paid off. And I think that's just such a great representation of what business is. It's like doing the scary thing, but then it works out and it happens that way for a reason. And something else that I kind of just wanted to touch on that point as well, and just a credit to you because again, you're so right with what you said there that like for hairdressers having someone come into their space, taking care of their clients, it's their baby, it's their pride and joy. It is a big trust thing, and I just really want to really credit you for that because even from the very first time you messaged me, I was like, I like this girl. I want to know her. Like she's just a beautiful person. And that's a credit to you. Like you have to be a specific type of person, I think, to gain that trust with people. So again, just such a credit to you. And I think that's important to highlight those skills that you need to have to be able to do a job like this. Like you need to be able to gain that trust really quickly. And that's not always an easy thing to do, but I think just who you are and the way you present yourself just makes that a bit easier as well. So just a huge credit to you. But
thank you.
You're welcome. But I do just want to sort of now go into that sort of mindset of any hairdresser who is in a position where like maybe something happens and then they do need a backup hairdresser. You kind of touched on it before, but can you kind of sort of give the process of how this works? They need to be enrolled in your business before they can kind of access the services. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So I guess, yeah, like I touched on before, there are so many different systems out there now, color systems, product lines, booking systems. So it is a lot to get around. And part of building that trust with the salon owner is that, it's important that when I come in that I understand and have a really great understanding of how their business model runs, the systems that they use. So the service agreement outlines, so to give you an example, I've got one salon. She holistically does most treatments in the salon. So when we sat down together, she ran me through all of her services, what is involved. She really values the customer experience. So it's all about, what's on her menu with drinks and nibbles and things like that, right through to, when they sit down, the consultation is, 15 minutes. It's not just a quick in and out. So taking that time to really understand the client, even if they've been a client for 5 years, she still takes that time every single consultation, in a really beautiful, calm way. And then, right through to then like the treatment in the basin, some salons are like in and out, and she's like, no, 15 minutes head massage, that's like non-negotiable. So I guess the beauty of the onboarding process to register the salon is that I can come in and adapt to your business model. So I want to know all of those little bits that make your experience unique. So that registering process, onboarding, is really important, that we take the time. And look, it's been really hard for me because I've had salons that have rung me and said, at 6 o'clock in the morning, Ava, I need you today. Like, can you come in? And it's been, again, a mindset thing. I've done a lot of personal development over the years to say, actually, no, I'm really, really sorry. I can't come in today. I want to help. However, there is a process that's involved. And I think, going back to what you're saying with, your beautiful, kind words, with almost just going all in and throwing yourself in there when an opportunity presents itself, to just, we can get all stuck up in here in our head and, oh no, but it's not polished. It's, we haven't got everything, in line to make sure that we can go in and do it properly. Sometimes you've got to just back yourself and go, do you know what? I'll work it out as I go. If I'm being a really great human, I'm being authentic, and I've got some really good, clear boundaries in place, what can go wrong? And there's been times when I've had to say, actually, I don't know that answer. I haven't got the answer to your question, but I'll go away and find it, and I'll come back to you and give it to you. But yeah, the registration is really important, because I think also, and I don't know if it just comes with maturity, but there becomes a point where you've got to be the right match as well. And, that gives the onboarding process, I think, gives the opportunity also for the salon owner to go, actually, yes, she is a fit for me, or no, she's not. And I think that's really important, to have that opportunity to go, even for me as a stylist, there's been one opportunity presented where I actually thought, do you know what? I'm not the right fit for this salon. And it was really empowering for me to ring that salon owner and say, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. It was probably more of a travel proximity. It was an hour and a half away. And I just said to her, look, I'd love to offer this service, but you're too far. And, the reason I created this business model was for myself as well, to have the flexibility in business. I've got a young family and I value the time with them. So for me to travel an hour and a half there and an hour and a half home again, it's just not viable. And it was received so beautifully, because I just was really honest and transparent. And, she was so grateful for that. And she actually ended up recommending a salon locally that has registered. So, I think that's a big thing, going back to your words earlier, I think it is really important that, when we feel something in our heart, that we actually follow the bouncy ball. And sometimes it will lead to something really great. And then other times it doesn't. But at least you actioned, it's there for a reason. I'm such a believer that, things come to us for a reason, and to explore that. And then to use the resources like this amazing podcast to be able to listen to these conversations, go, okay, well, she had been in business for 13 years, started a new business model, and was still a shaky mess, to put herself out there. Like, just because you get older and wiser doesn't mean that the nerves aren't there and that you're wondering if this is even a thing. But I think, that mindset piece of, back yourself and give it a go, and, lean on the people that are one or two steps ahead of you, and ask the questions. You've done it. There's lots of amazing, business owners around. Just reach out and say, hey, I'm wanting to do this. Have you got any advice from me? Because, I think 10 times out of 10, that person will say, thank you for reaching out. And yes, I've got some wisdom to share with you. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for sharing that vulnerability as well, because I think, it's so valid what you're saying. Like, we all have struggles, we all have things that we're like, oh, I don't know if that's the right decision or not. But, it's empowering to hear that. And even like that example that you just shared with that salon, like saying, actually, no, I'm not the right fit for you. Like, I think it's important to hear that. And I think sometimes in business, we just think we've got to say yes, 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 yes all the time. And actually, we are going to be better in business if we learn the power of actually saying no. Like, it's important. There's a reason we have that word, and sometimes we do need to use it. So I really appreciate you sharing that story. So at the moment, is it just you at the moment, or do you have a team behind you?
Yes, no, it's just me at the moment. And part of that goal setting, which, again, when I was in business beforehand, it was a happy accident. It was accidental success. It was just, the clients word of mouth found me and I kind of just roll with it. But I guess this time, and probably at this stage in our lives, I'm being really intentional about how I use my time and my energy, and I'm really focused on meeting the goals. So yeah, part of the Backup Hairdresser is to create a team of stylists so that I'm if I get double booked, I've got somebody to back me up to say, yes, I can send so and so out to the salon, which also is part of my processes with the onboarding. If I collect all of the information, it's integrated into, a spreadsheet in a folder, really crystal clear. Then when I do get a backup stylist, I can then educate them. Okay, this is a salon, this is the products they use, these are the systems, and it's really easy for them to follow the process. So I'm kind of trying to be one step ahead of myself, I guess, for when the time comes. So yeah, I'm getting really excited. I'm getting very close to getting my first backup hairdresser for me. My goal is women, mothers that are potentially hairdressers that have become parents and out of the industry but want to get back into it, but want the flexibility. So they want to be able to say, yes, I can take a week there, or a week there, or a day here and a day there. Yeah, because I think as a mother myself, that was where I got stuck, was I didn't have that flexibility. The business was so busy that school holidays, I would be like, oh gosh, I want to take a school holiday off, but I'm already booked, and that's 6 months in advance. So I think what I would love to offer as employer is that to get contractors on registered under the Backup Hairdresser brand, so that I can say, right, I've got a job for you, do you want it? If not, I'll send it to the next person, and offer a flexibility. And I think, again, going back to the COVID times, I think a lot has changed in hairdressing. I think there's a lot more, hairdressers that either stepped off the tools and would love to get back into it, but just don't know how that looks. Business is not for everybody, and it is certainly not the easy way out. I am such a firm believer of that. We are certainly taking the rough road. It's, and there's so many rewards that comes with the challenges. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm a super tenacious, ambitious person. So for me, I love the stimulation of growing and, having something to nurture and grow, and as a role model for our little humans, that, when you've got something on your heart, a dream, just go for it. It'll be messy sometimes, but, there's also so many parts of it that is so beautiful. But, I also appreciate that, there are hairdressers out there that would love to essentially work for themselves, but don't want the business side of things, don't want to have to deal with all of that comes with the marketing and the financials and, the responsibilities. So I guess for me, if I could offer another mother the opportunity to go and do some work, and the work is all set up for her or him, that, yeah, there's a business model that exists for them, that isn't that they're stuck to, part-time or full-time work where they've got to be somewhere every week. So yeah, so that's really exciting to sort of into this new space of, as a hairdresser, as a business owner, to then employ somebody on, and kind of what that looks like for me, in terms of finding like-minded hairdressers that also work how I work. So yeah, I'm excited.
That's so exciting and so beautiful. And I think what's really exciting about this is that, like you said, for so long, it was like, if you want to be a hairdresser, you have to be willing and able to work the late nights, work the weekends, work these crazy hours. You can't do school pickup, you can't do school drop off.
Yeah.
You're probably never going to really get a weekend off. And I think to be able to offer this other version where it's like, no, actually, you can still be a hairdresser and do the career that you love, but you can also do it with this freedom and flexibility, is just a game changer. Because I
Yeah.
think a lot of people have had to give up a career they love so much because they haven't been able to have that time flexibility.
Totally. And I think this is another part of the industry that I love, is as I'm going into salons, even in commercial spaces and big salons, they're saying, I'm not working Saturdays anymore. And I'm like, yes, Amazing. Like, because it is a huge commitment. I think when we're young and we're, fresh and motivated, working the late nights and working the weekends, it's not a big deal. But I mean, that's a short-lived, and, hairdressing is hard work, being on your feet, being emotionally available for clients, it's physically taxing and it's emotionally taxing. So I think exactly what you've said, to be able to offer something within the industry that is evolving with who we are as people and the lifestyle that we want to live and that whole work-life balance thing. I think it's important that we grow and evolve and create business models that service, people that don't want to miss out on their kids' games on a Saturday, or, want to be able to put their babies to bed on a Tuesday and a Thursday night if that's, the late night. So yeah, it feels really exciting. And, I mean, I'm currently, on the Sunshine Coast, but I would love the Backup Hairdresser to be everywhere. I would love this business model to be executed out. And, Jess in South Australia has got, backup teams, that there's people, because we're everywhere and we need the support everywhere. And, I was very close to burnout, very, very close. I've been there twice. Well, I've been there once and then got very close again. And when I got there a second time, I was like, okay, Ava, where are these patterns? Like, you need to address these patterns because clearly the circuit needs to be broken somewhere. And I guess, you know, just as a human, just as a woman, as a mother, like that's a really scary place to be in. And if I can help avoid that with other business owners within our industry, I'm here for it. There is nothing more validating that what I am doing is the right thing than going into a salon, which I went to on Friday. Actually, no, Tuesday, sorry. And she pretty much just put her hands up and said, take over, like, just take it. Like, and that was confronting for me because I know how big it is to have, a business. It's like another child. It's like a baby. And we love it and we nurture it and we don't want to lose it. But she just put her hands up and was like, I need out. I need respite. I've been doing it for 9 years. I have not had a holiday in 9 years. So she was also, I could identify and relate to her. And so we had the biggest hug. It was so beautiful. It was like a friend that I've had for 30 years. We just hugged, and, the energy exchange was just like, I've got you, I've got your back. And you know what? Those words came out of my mouth as I was hugging her, holding her. I said to her, I've got you, I've got your back. And she was like, I know you do. I've got goosebumps. She's like, I know you do. And for me, it then almost becomes not even business. It's like, this is just a human to human interaction where, like, I'm seeing you, I'm hearing where you're at, and that's huge to be able to support somebody in business. I've got the hairdressing skill, the expertise, but actually I also just, from a human relations point of view, like, I want you to feel like you're supported, that you're not alone. So I guess, that's going to be something that is part of the business model. When I do employ or contract hairdressers in, their values that, I want to be, that I want to honor, that, yes, we're hairdressers. Yes, we can go into a space, we can use our skills, but actually we're people at the end of the day. The clients are people, giving them the service and the time and the listening, understanding where they're at in life, but also the salon owners. Yeah, I think holistically, from my perspective, from the clients, what they're receiving, their appointments are still there. No one's cancelled them. We're looking after the clients as well, and making sure that they're looked after in that appointment and for the 6 weeks or however long their hairdresser's off, and then making sure that that salon owner's nurtured. It feels like just full circle. There's nothing that's missed in this business model. So that's really exciting.
That's so beautiful. It's so funny, like something that you said before. When I was a couple of years ago, when I was first looking into creating hair babes and business, and I had this like idea of what I want it to be, I
Mm,
looked into this. Now the numbers might have changed now, but I know at the time when I looked, it said the average hairdresser lasts 7 years in the industry and then they're done.
wow.
And yeah, a lot of that was due to like body, but a lot of it was due to burnout. And I think, you're so right when you first go, yeah,
Yeah.
when you first go into hairdressing, you've got all this passion and
Mm,
excitement and energy, but it is easy for that to diminish over time because it is as I don't want to say this in a bad way, but it does take an emotional toll on you and a physical toll on you with pouring into everyone else's cups all the time.
Yeah.
And, I think something that you said just then, it really resonated with me because I know there were times in my salon where I was like, I just can't do this today. Like, I'm drained, I'm exhausted, I just need a break. And I
Mm,
think to be able to have that ability to call someone to come in with fresh eyes,
mm,
fresh energy,
mm.
got that upbeat attitude that you just can't give at that moment in time and be able to be like, please take care of this for a moment so I can breathe,
Yeah.
regain my energy, regain my passion, like just have a minute to like pour some love into myself so that
Yeah.
I can come back fresh would just be such a relief to so many people. I think would be, yeah, a lot of people would hear that and be like, wow, how do I get in on this? Because I need
Yeah.
that too.
Totally, totally. And I think you've nailed it. I think, one thing I've got really, really good at, because people say to me now, like, but what about you? What is going to stop you from burning out? Because, yes, essentially you're offering relief for salon owners, but then what about Ava? What about the backup hairdresser? And self-care is massive. And that is one thing, I'm so good at scheduling appointments for everybody else. And now it's like, okay, well, part of my business model is that I schedule in time for myself. And, that's something that was part of those patterns that I identified before that I didn't do. And so, they're boundaries now, like it's non-negotiables. And, even things like this, it fills up my cup. I love having these conversations. I come away, I feel inspired, I feel rejuvenated. And then I also am a little bit of an introvert. And so I also, on a Friday morning, I do Friday financials. So every Friday morning, I've got, a period of time where I sit down, I go through all of my, invoicing for the week. I touch base, I just reconnect with where the business is at, where it's going, and then I habit stack. So then as soon as I've done that, then I do something for myself. And it might be to go for a run. I love physical exercise. It might be to go and have a coffee with myself, go for a walk along the beach, love meditating. So I might just go and lay down for half an hour and do a meditation. And I think that is key. I think for us in business, I think, it's still and a bit of a taboo and a bit of a hype self-care, but it is so vital that we do that. And there's no reason, there's no excuses not to do it. We've all got the same amount of time, and in order to show up and be the best version of ourselves, we have to then also do the stuff for ourselves, which fills up our own cup and, yeah, rejuvenates ourselves. Because, yeah, we're not robots. We're not just on a never-ending battery. We have to identify that it takes consistent you know self-care to maintain this level of energy and passion. Otherwise, yeah, we're all heading for burnout. And 7 years, that probably explains why there's no hairdressers around, because being in all of these different salon environments, the common conversation is, I can't employ a hairdresser. I need you because there's no hairdressers around. And 7 years, like, that gave me goosebumps for a reason. That's scary. Like, a 3 or 4 year apprenticeship, that's only a few years out as a hairdresser. Like, that's what are we missing yet there? And whether it is that self-care component of, you know, self-responsibility, we have to do it for ourselves. No one's going to say, hey, go and book a massage or go and have a walk on the beach. No one's going to make us do that unless we do it. So, yeah, it's very important.
I really love that you brought that up. And that's something that I'm very passionate about as well. I say
Mm.
this to pretty much everyone that I interact with is that if you're not like feeding yourself first and filling up your cup first, you
Yeah,
cannot be the person that everyone else needs you to be.
yeah.
And I think, and I say this a lot, but I think as hairdressers, we're so constantly focused and worried about what everyone else needs that we
Mm.
forget to look after ourselves first. So if you can reframe that in your mind to be like, okay, I want to give to everyone else, I want to care for everyone else, but to be able to do that efficiently, I have to take care of myself first. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah,
So
no.
I did want to ask you,
Yeah,
obviously you're a Sunny Coast gal. For all
yes,
the Sunny Coast babes listening right now,
yeah.
how can they get in contact with you? How can they get these services up and running?
Yeah, so I've got a website, so I'll send through the link so that it's in the notes, thebackuphairdresser.com.au, and then Instagram and Facebook. So you can just send me a direct message. In my bio is a link that you can fill out, just a basic form. I also have my service agreement in my Instagram bio so that you can actually have a flick through and see if this service aligns with your business values. So yeah, otherwise just email, the backup hairdresser at hotmail.com, or just my contact number. But I'll send that all through to you so that you've got it, so that you can pop it in the notes. But yeah, please reach out, because even, and I say this to the salon owners around, even if it's just a conversation, it doesn't mean that, that you have to reach out just to register your salon. I feel like there's so much value in just sharing like we're doing now. And, I think key in business is being prepared so that we don't get thrown when things happen. And so, you know, to register the salon, it's free. Yeah, it's time, I mean, not limited time. It's only, probably 2 hours of your life to register the salon. But it is so important to be prepared. And I think that comes from conversations. Do we align? Do we have similar values? Can you see me in your business? And then I kind of just go from there. So on the sunny coast, please reach out and say hi and connect with me. And it's and we'll just go from there.
That's amazing. And the fact that you can offer that registration to people for free is absolutely amazing. I think you'd almost be crazy not to register, to be honest.
Exactly. And I think so too. And I mean, I won't go all through all of the layers of it, but I've shared with you that recently my husband was made redundant. And, he was our consistent income, in our home. And that came out of nowhere. It was a Monday morning and it was presented to us. And I think that was just another validation of, we need to be prepared, because, our life was changed literally within a click of a finger, one phone call. Everything has changed for us. So I think, to be prepared, to know that there's support there if you need it. It might not be for 3 months. And like I said earlier, I've got some salons that are registered and I haven't worked with them yet, but I've been in the salon, so that when that time comes that they need to ring and say, hey, listen, I need to get on a plane and go somewhere, they can, or I need to support my children or my, parents or whoever it is, that they're ready and registered and good to go. So yeah.
I love that so much. And yeah, I just really would encourage any listeners from the Sunshine Coast to really take advantage of that service, because what an incredible thing to have there if you ever need it. And like, we hope you never do need it, but
Yes.
if you do, amazing to have that there, especially in a case of an emergency. So very, very exciting. Now, I did want to ask you, because I'm sure there are probably some people listening right now thinking, wow, that is such an amazing business idea. And it is something that potentially one day I would really love to get involved with. Are you open to having people reach out and say to you, like, this is something that one day maybe I would like to get involved in, and just share their information with you so that when you're ready to start looking, you've got some information available?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah. I haven't put myself, again, like, I can feel my heart rate lift. I'm like, oh, this is a bit spicy, like, and it's exciting, but 100%. And again, I'm here for the conversations, and I think, I love to hear the stories. I'm a great listener, and I'm such an empathetic person. So I think, if you have been in the industry, even if it was 10 years ago, reach out and let's chat. And I guess you just never know what's around the corner. And, part of the onboarding process for having contractors, hairdressers, is that I am going to offer upskilling as education, because I know what it's like, when you've been out of the industry, trends are changing, there's lots of new product on the market that we're not aware of. So part of, the onboarding for me is that I want to help add value to that person. So don't be afraid, even if it means that, you've been a mum and, you don't know how that looks anymore for yourself. I will have education, upskilling, that type of thing, as a service to offer, so that they've got the confidence to go. Because also, it's scary when you're going into a salon and you don't know the clients, you don't know what they've had done previously, you haven't built that relationship. That can be quite intimidating. So I think empowering and making sure that the stylists are feeling confident. And you know, I mean, for myself, I can only speak for myself right now, but it's like everything in life, you've just got to practice it, and the more you do it, the better you get. And with everything, the first time you do it, it's always scary, and then you do it and you're like, what was I even thinking? That was amazing. I loved that. And I can't wait to do that again. And yeah, I guess probably for the listeners as well, everybody knows a hairdresser. And so it's just, I think creating awareness for the backup. It might not be a hairdresser that's necessarily, even listening, but maybe it's somebody that's jumped on and is like, oh, actually, no, my mum's a hairdresser and she would love this, or my auntie or my best friend, or, who can I share this out with in the community? So yeah, if you know a hairdresser and you think that they would appreciate some backup support, yeah, I'd be super grateful for you to share my services with them.
I
Yeah.
love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. I
Yeah.
did want to ask you, because I would be interested to hear your perspective and take on this.
Mm.
Also, for anyone who's in the industry who's looking at, maybe again, maybe they are running a business or they're working full time, and it is very overwhelming, and they're feeling like they're starting to burn out and they're kind of starting to lose the passion to obviously leave and do something like what you're doing now. Do you have any advice for anyone who's wondering if they should take that step? Obviously, it is a bit of a risk, but do you have any advice for what that looks like and what it's like to actually take that step and do something like that?
Yeah, I think being open, I think is probably key there to any opportunity, because you just don't know what's around the corner. And I think sometimes, we can get in our own way and we can get stuck in our head of what it would look like, what it could be. And that can be quite daunting because it's, I guess anxious attachment to an outcome that it doesn't exist. So I think just being open to, I guess we're providing a service to them. It's when I first started, I was like, oh no, I'm too scared to go into a salon and introduce myself. But then I was like, hang on a second. I just don't know. That person might have found out that day that they're unwell and they have to go and have a medical procedure. And by me walking in that day, I am like their angel that's walked in with my pair of scissors and is like, you don't have to worry about your business. I've got you. So I guess it's being open to, the mindset shifts of, and I think, again, as hairdressers, we're conditioned a certain way. And I think it's unpacking that conditioning and being like, actually, there's a lot of opportunity out there and you just don't know and you've got to give it a go. And I think probably you would have to be a pretty flexible human, as in, again, open to, a different environment, different situations. But I think what comes with that is, you get to meet lots of new people and that's really refreshing. And the monotony that's not there, so it's nice to be able to go in and have conversations and love them and then leave them, and you might go back to that salon, you might meet that person again, or it might just be an interaction for that appointment and then that's it. And I think the responsibility, especially as a hairdresser, and a business owner, that they're going to keep coming back. So there's a lot of pressure that comes with that making sure that every part of their needs is met. So I think, if I formulated a branding and a system for them to follow, all they have to do is follow that simple procedure and deliver it as authentically as they can and honestly, and then, lean on their expertise and their skills and deliver to the best of their ability. I think, yeah, being open to anything that comes, and also probably some advice, and this is probably, again, holistically, use your people, use the people around you, network. I think, again, we can get so caught up in our heads and the stories that we tell ourselves and what it's going to be like. And that's not true, but our consciousness believes that, anything is, there's so many possibilities out there. And I think if we lean on the people that have done it before or that are doing it in our industry and outside of our industry, like I network every week. I try and go to some type of event, whether it's a coffee catch up, a business catch up, just a women in business event, because the power of leaning on your people, different industries, but we're all facing the same challenges. So I think, celebrating the successes and then also being able to talk through the challenges, it empowers us. And I think it helps us to become more adaptable, flexible, open people, because you're like, oh, well, it's not just me. So I think, you know, self-development is massive now, personal development, and I love that. I think, that's something that people are valuing more and more and more, and it is personal, but we're in relationship with our business, we're in relationship with our partners, with our children, with our cars, with our houses, we're in relationship with everything. So I think, being, if you can learn that skill in one area, it then just filters out into all areas of life. So I think, lean on your people, the people that are like-minded, that are doing similar things to you. And yeah, I guess you just watch yourself flourish and blossom and grow. And yeah, that's really empowering.
That is such great advice. Thank you so,
Yeah.
so much
Oh,
for sharing that.
pleasure. Yeah.
Well, we are sadly coming towards the
Yeah.
end of our session today. I would just like to ask before we sort of wrap up, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the listeners today?
I think probably just to share that self-love piece again, to just do it. Just make the time for yourself, however that looks and feels to you as an individual. I think when we spoke about that before, and I think especially in business, it's a very masculine world. To be a successful business person, it takes a lot of structure and system and strategy. And, I love that. I love that part of business. But I also feel like leaning into the feminine side of business, where it's like, or even just the feminine full stop, to actually give yourself permission to, just be, and not have to be doing, but just being as a person, and wherever that looks and feels for you, that you can, fill yourself up. I think it's really important that we talk about that a lot more for our own well-being and our own mental health, because that's a real thing. And I think when you're in the strategies and you're in the planning and in the structures, that's the first thing to go, is the self-care, the self-love component. So I think I want to bring that forward and be like, have all of the masculine side in business, get all those things in processes, get them moving, but also make sure that that other piece is there and available for you. Because I think, when you're looking back in hindsight, and I certainly do, now I look back at how much more I've enjoyed the last year of business versus probably the 13 years. I look back and think, far out, how on earth did I do it? And did I enjoy all of it? Like, there were certainly, parts of it that I loved so much, but there was also parts that I resented because I missed out on the things that were important. And, I guess I lost a bit of my identity, in that first, when I did throw myself all in, but so much so that I didn't look after myself at the same time. So well-being is important, and we have to take full radical self-responsibility for that piece, because yeah, it's not going to fall into our lap and happen for us. Yeah.
Such beautiful advice. And this
Yeah.
is something that didn't even know that we were going to talk about today, but I would just love to, I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot, but
Yeah,
I would
go for
love to ask you, you mentioned a couple of times today that you've done a lot of self-development work and self-work. Is there anything that you've done that you could recommend to people to try and see if it just helps them in any way in their life and their businesses?
Yeah, definitely. Oh gosh, girl, we could do a whole nother podcast on this.
Let's do it.
That
Let's do
too.
it.
That too. But I think probably some advice would be, find who you are. Find who you are as a person, because, you know, I was raised by an extraordinary mother, woman who empowered me massively. And I am who I am. Massive credit to my mum, because, when I said at 14 that I wanted to leave school, there was no hesitation. She said to me, as long as you know where you're going, your path, I will support you 100%. And she backed me every single part of the way. But I think, our identity, who we believe that we are, is so deeply rooted. And I think there's so many parts of us that have been conditioned. And so part of my self-development was to go right back and heal parts of me, go back to that beautiful young girl inside of me who've experienced some trauma, who experienced a lot of fear. I experienced some really unhealthy relationships. Honestly, we could really delve into this. And I had to do a lot of forgiveness for myself, the situations that I put myself in, a lot of forgiveness for the people that, and the situations. And I think a lot of that healing, really brought me back to who I am, just Ava as a person, without the parents' influence, without the teachers, school teachers' influence, without, the employer's influence. And I guess to bring it into a business context, you wear black or white. You wear a full face of makeup. You wear your lipstick. You present yourself a certain way, and it's like that every day. And, that's not me at all. And so it has taken me years to be comfortable in my own salon space to wear whatever the fuck I want to wear and put on the music, whatever I want to listen to that day, and drop the odd swear word in there and not be like, oh my gosh, I just said that, to not overthink it, because I think the personal development work that I did was identifying who I am and who I want to be in this world. And as I said before, my relationship with everything in life, but especially with business, who do I want to be? And I want to attract my people. If I'm showing up as this extremely polished, my hair is done perfectly and I've got a full face of makeup, and, I'm talking about all the correct things to talk about in a professional environment, I'm not going to attract my people. So I think for anybody that would be listening, and especially hairdressers, take the time to figure out who you are and start showing up as her or as him, because you want to love your job, and that is being surrounded around your type of people. And, even in the last 12 months with the Backup Hairdresser, I kind of put myself out to everybody, in salons that potentially I probably wouldn't ordinarily do that to. And every single salon that I have registered are people like me. And I put it back to the work that I've done, and I've invested a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of energy. That work, personal development, is not easy work to do. It is not, again, it's not the easy stuff. It's not the easy road out, but it is worth it 10 million times over. And how it filters out, for me as a wife, as a mother, as a businesswoman, it has made my relationships flourish. And it was tough. And some days I still am like, oh, something's triggered me. And where has that come from? But I think within that personal development journey that is ever going, I now can identify the triggers. And rather than react to situations, especially in business, I can be really responsive, and I can take a moment. And, again, going back to what I mentioned before with, sometimes I don't have the answers. And I'm so confident now to say to a salon owner, and the imposter's real, oh my God, she's been doing it for so many more years than me. She knows everything. What the fuck do I know? But I'm at a point now where I'm like, actually, do you know what? That's such an amazing question, and I don't have the answer for you right now, but I'm so willing to go and find that out, and just give me some time, and I can respond versus be like, oh, well, now it's hurting my ego because I don't know the answer to that question. So, it's just, I'm in such a different energy, and I think, you attract goodness when you're, in that space. So, yeah, I think I think self-identity in the personal development world will then filter out into every area of your life, including business, and will help you grow and evolve as a business person massively. Yeah.
I think that's so powerful what you just said there. It's so interesting. The first salon that I worked at, my manager who at that salon, her and I are still really good friends to this day. And she actually owns her own salon here in Adelaide now. It's a very successful salon. She's doing really well. Yeah. And it's so interesting because when I started hairdressing, which I believe was kind of around a similar time to you from the sound of things,
Okay.
it was very much that, like you said, very polished. You wear a certain thing, you wear high heels. Like that doesn't matter that you're going to wear high heels for 12 hours. That's what you do because that's
Yeah.
the look that you need to present. And you talk about things in a certain way and you share your life in a certain way. And really, you share very little and you hear a lot from your client. And it's just how it is. But it's so interesting because she was obviously conditioned to teach people that way because that's how she'd been taught also. And it's so funny. We actually caught up just yesterday and we were talking about this and she was like, I don't do those things anymore. She's like, if I'm having a bad day, I say like, I'm having a rough day. Like, I'm still going to give you the best service and the best of me, but just so you know, like, this thing happened. And she said the same thing, you know, drop the occasional swear word here and there and talk about those topics that were always so off topic. And she literally said exactly what you just said to me. She was like, I have never had a better clientele than I have right now because I'm being so real, so genuine, so authentic. And she's like, I'm so happy now. Like, I'm surrounded by my people. And I think that's such a powerful thing that you said just there.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm so happy for her. And I think, you know, when you're embodying who you're meant to be, it like just filters out into the world. And, you know, I'll show up now in a salon with like a really bright, colorful top on. And every single time, people will be like, oh, wow, oh my gosh, I love your top. And it's because and it's not just about the color that I'm wearing or the top that I'm wearing, but it's an expression of who I am as a person. And so people look at me and they're like, oh, she must have like a bit of a bright, you know, whereas I think that monochrome, the black and the white, like it leaves people guessing, who is this person? You know, so I love that. And I would empower more hairdressers, especially because I think it is still very much, you know, a part of our industry. Give yourself permission to express who you are as a person. And if that means showing up without makeup on that day and saying, actually, do you know what? My children had a really tough morning this morning and I didn't have time. And I actually didn't want to prioritize 15 minutes putting on a face of makeup for 15 minutes with my child. And I think the respect that you gain from being so open and transparent, and, you know, they're some of my highest values in life, but also in business, that, you know, they are priorities. I'm choosing my priorities. And whether that's showing up in my own clothing or, you know, without makeup, or saying, actually, I've had a really tough morning. So, yes, I'm going to provide you the service, but just appreciate that if I don't, you know, talk as much or I don't seem as bubbly, it's got nothing to do with you and everything to do with me. And I'm, you know, it's just one of those days. And I think people really appreciate that. So, yeah, good on her. And I hope that anybody's listening takes on that little bit of wisdom, because it's very easy to fall into conforming to what society and what the old school, you know, idea of what hairdressers looked and how they showed up. That's got to go. It's got to go. It's not serving us at all. So, yeah, I love that you're having those conversations too.
It makes me so excited. And I think that's the powerful thing about what I'm trying to do and what you're trying to do is we are really moving away from that like toxic positivity that was really in the hairdressing world, which actually wasn't positive at all. It was actually very negative, but it came across as this toxic positivity. And we're just saying now, like, let's be real, let's be raw, let's be authentic, like still do a really good job and still provide a really good service, but do it in a way that's really true and raw and authentic. And I just really love that.
Yeah. Oh, so do I. You've nailed it. Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for the conversations today. And I'm excited. Maybe there will be a part two. Yeah, watch this space.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing what you're doing. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your advice and your knowledge. I think people are going to take so much away from this. And I'm so appreciative to you for taking some time to come and speak to me. And yes, absolutely. As soon as I stop recording, we're going to talk about this part two.
Yes. Let's do it, girl. Let's lock it in.
I am so excited. Well, thank you, Ava, again so much. And like I said, I will link all of your information in the show notes so people can find you and speak to you and get on board with what you're doing, because I think you're really like revolutionizing what you're doing here for the industry. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for your beautiful time and your beautiful energy and your shares. It's, yeah, really, really special to be collaborating with you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Guys, I just want to thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I hope that you guys found it as helpful as I did. I just love Ava. I think she's such a beautiful soul. She's such a light. And I just love what she's doing for the industry. I think this is such a cool concept. And I love just hearing about this kind of stuff and hearing about the way the industry is changing and the way things are going. It's just really cool to hear and be a part of. Guys, I hope that you're having a fabulous week. I know the schedule has been really off with the podcast. I am so sorry. I'm trying my best to get back on track, and I'm hoping from next week onwards we're going to have a regular posting schedule and more regular podcast episodes to listen to. Thank you for being patient with me, but I do hope you're loving all this content I'm bringing out for you, and I will talk to you next week. Thanks, guys. Mwah.